Every entrepreneur has that moment between breaths, that quiet pause before everything changes. And for my guest this week, Helen Pryse Lloyd, it was standing in Australia, four young kids at her feet, wondering what the next chapter of her life would be after she'd just moved over from the UK. What followed was a wild home care business that scaled from just herself to 170 staff. She jumped into leadership, forged through culture breakdowns and a global pandemic, and a transformation from overwhelmed founder to working 10 hours a week as a CEO and wondering what it was that her and her partner were doing right that all her other entrepreneur friends were not doing. So now she's using that hard won wisdom to help entrepreneurs reclaim that time back and reclaim a bit of their sanity and their freedom through powerful, scalable systems. And this is a story of reinvention, resilience, and building a life that you can actually breathe in. Enjoy the show. Ellen, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, where you've come from and where you are now and how that journey's been for you?
Hey Ian, yes. So I'm originally from the UK. I moved out to Australia 12 years ago with my family, my husband and my four children. And I've got a background in the care sector. So when I was in the UK, that was where I worked. And when we came out here with the family being young, as most women, most young mums, I'd spent all my time with my children, and my youngest was coming up for school age, and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? So I decided one night that I might just set myself up with a little home care business. So that's caring for older people and people with disabilities in their own home. And 5 years later, I sold the business with over 170 staff, and everything skyrocketed and went through the roof from a point of view of going from a little small business to a CEO and beyond. So that's kind of a little bit of a nutshell of the journey that I went through. So I sold the business a couple of years ago, went through massive growth, all the learnings, all the experiences of starting, scaling, and selling a business, and got the war wounds and the experience along the way to now share and support others. So what we've been doing since we sold that home care business is my husband is actually a software developer. And when we started the home care business, as I said, we grew really rapidly. So I went from having a couple of staff to several staff to 15 to 30. And in the first few months, my husband was actually working down in Sydney. He was contracting, and I needed him to come home and help me because it was getting so busy. So he stopped his contract job, came out, helped me, and he's all about systems and processes. He's a developer, and he started with a spreadsheet. Within a couple of weeks, the spreadsheet was breaking. So he set about building the software system that we used in the home care business, which was actually instrumental in helping us to scale the workforce, that we had a large geographic area, and it was our way of managing our business. Really, was the software that we had. And when we sold the business several years on, combined, we were working less than 10 hours a week in the business, and we were looking around at all of our friends they were entrepreneurs, they were business owners, and they were working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours, couldn't even go and have a cup of coffee with friends without picking up phone calls from staff and dealing with problems and putting out fires. And my husband and I thought, what are we doing? Well, what are we doing right? What are we doing that everyone else isn't doing? And we realized it was the systems. We realized that it was our ability to be anywhere in the world and check in and see what was going on, what the risks were in our business, who hadn't paid us, how many clients we had, all of that information we could just flick up the computer and find out straight away. And it was really valuable in the success of the business. So my husband set about building a platform, which is Kaizenate, which is the business we have now, where anybody can build their own software within their business, because we see there's a there's a massive need. People either try and find something off the shelf that doesn't suit their business's needs, or they can't afford the big development costs of building their own bespoke system. So we sit in the middle and help people to build their own software these days. But that's been my journey in a nutshell.
Amazing. Good catch there, by the way, because I feel like you almost said, what are we doing wrong? Because everybody else was on these
Yeah,
40, 50, 60-hour weeks, and
yeah.
did you say combined 10 hours?
Combined 10 hours. Yeah, yeah. And I was
That's
probably doing
incredible.
about 7 or 8 of them. I was
Well,
doing
he's
the
just
hard
tapping on his just tapping on his laptop, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Just before we dive into a couple of questions I got there, Helen, you've really picked up the accent.
It's funny, people definitely say that, and then I'll go back to the UK and visit, and as soon as I arrive in the UK, everybody says, "You sound so Australian," and then by the time I leave, I went back a couple of months ago, and I was actually doing some business coaching at the time, and one of the guys out in Australia said, "Can we have a quick call?" And I spoke to him, and I'd only been in the UK a couple of days, and he said, "Oh, you sound so English." So I think I just pick up the dialogue on wherever I'm hanging out, to be honest.
Oh, I've got a friend whose dad was born in England, but his dad is Scottish, and so every time him and his dad are talking, he just completely switches straight into a Scottish accent. It's so
Yeah.
strange to be.
And I interestingly, the Scots out because I worked in aged care, so I'd meet a lot of kind of the 10-pound poms who've been out in Australia for 40, 50 years or so, if not longer. And they were, but the Scottish accent pretty much stays. It's one of the few accents that doesn't get tainted with that kind of Aussie twang.
What was your journey like then from UK to Australia? How was that? How did that kind of come about? Was it something you'd been mulling over for some time to move out to Australia, or was it for a specific reason, like family started moving over there? What was that like?
No, we came out by ourselves. I'd been backpacking out here when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I enjoyed it, but I felt the need just to get back and be back with family in the UK. And our children, they were still pretty young. I think our eldest was 7 when we moved out here, and our youngest was 2. But in the UK, I was just thinking, what does the future hold for the kids as they get older, hanging out on street corners? There's not much for teenagers to do other than get in trouble. And so the appeal of being outdoors, the lifestyle, the weather out in Australia was really appealing from a family perspective. So that we had a little bit of an idea about it, probably more me than my husband, because he'd not even been to Australia. And I said, why don't we go to Australia? And he said, oh, yeah, let's give it a go. So we did. And 12 years later,
Uh,
we're still here. But yeah, it was an idea. We were definitely looking for something different. We were looking at Europe, we were looking at Dubai, we knew we wanted something a little bit different to the UK. So it was an easy natural progression because although it's pretty much as far away as the UK than you can get, it's very, very much like the UK. So, ease of
yeah,
culture,
yeah, and I
language,
know
and all those types of
when
things,
I was
and
younger,
great
and you
weather
see
as
all
well. So
these like TV programs of people moving out to Australia, it's always about the kind of more relaxed lifestyle, and kind of more kind of downtime, I suppose, and relaxed rather than the full on nature of the UK, more than anything. But you said something then, Helen, which I didn't realize, and you kind of buried the lead. Really, you said you went backpacking. Talk to us about that.
yes, I was one of those people who are fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know. From a young age, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I would line my dolls up and all those types of things, and all I wanted to be was a primary school teacher. And I actually went to university and started my teaching degree in Glasgow. And about a year in, I suddenly realised although I love kids, I was teaching history and geography and topics that I actually really hated. And so I had this moment of, is this what I want? And as well, I was teaching children who were 6, 7 years old who were more streetwise than I was. And it wasn't teaching, it was crowd control, and it was very challenging, and I really questioned what I wanted from my life, and I ended up leaving university just over a year in, kind of questioning what I wanted to do in life, because all I'd wanted to be was a teacher. So I thought, what better thing to do than go travel the world and find myself? So that's what happened. I went backpacking for a year, mostly in Australia, a little bit of New Zealand. Uh, got to a few places on the way back home, but the money was running out, so I got home quite quickly after that. But yeah, had a year out, and it was the most amazing experience ever.
Yeah. Tell me about New Zealand, because when I was traveling, so I went traveling for like a year, um, and New Zealand was on my list, and I had a job lined up on a farm over there, but I just ran out of money like you did and had to go back home. So I couldn't afford the flights from Vancouver to New Zealand. I had to just go back home from New York to the UK. So tell me what New Zealand was like, because it's still on my list.
Oh, amazing. Absolutely beautiful place. To be honest, I think if it was a little bigger and a little more kind of set up from a business perspective, I'd probably, and not quite so close to the UK weather, I think I'd have probably chosen New Zealand over Australia. It's very similar landscape to kind of Scotland and Wales, and it's just beautiful. I had so many fun experiences there traveling around, kayaking for a few days. I did bungee jumping, and yeah, just amazing experiences. But yeah, this was nearly 30 or so years ago now, so I'm I can't quite remember all the details, Ian, but I went back a few years ago and experienced some of New Zealand, and it really is a beautiful country.
Yeah, I'd love to just go over there, get like a camper van or something, hire it out for a month or two, and then just drive around both islands,
Yeah,
and just get
definitely.
lost.
Definitely go and do it, definitely go. But I understand the cost of living there is pretty expensive, so going and buying food and stuff
All
like
right,
that even
okay.
itself is pretty expensive. So, but yeah, definitely should be on your bucket list if you've not been.
It definitely is. Oh, sorry, one second. I'm sorry if you heard that then. The dog's moaning.
Kind
He's-
of working
he was
from
asleep
home,
down there.
dogs and children in the background.
He was asleep down there in the corner in his little bed, and I could hear him snoring away, but he's just got up, shook, and then started groaning. He's old. He's an old man now.
Oh.
Um, what was the how long were you backpacking for, and what was it like in Australia? Because Australia wasn't on my list when I wanted to go traveling. It was more just New Zealand. Got to get to New Zealand, but I never made it there. So what's Australia like then, from a traveler's perspective, rather than someone who's now moved over there and lives there?
Oh, amazing. And I think generally quite pretty safe as well. Like if I mean, my kids will go, I don't want to travel around Australia because they know it. But I definitely encourage my with nephews, nieces, those type family members to come out and just experience it and travel around. It's pretty safe. And there's a big backpacker kind of contingent. So there's always, even when I came out, there's always people to meet, hang around with, travel with, and experience. And it's an easy way of life, obviously, the culturally and with the no language barriers. It's a very easy place to navigate, get round, very backpacker friendly. Lots of casual work and opportunities, as I'm sure you're experiencing in the UK. There's a real shortage of those low skilled jobs and hospitality type workers. So yeah, it's a very easy place. I mean, I think if I reflect back, I did some pretty long distances, kind of round Western Australia, up Perth, from Perth north, and we probably a few of us got in a car with a liter of water and probably not quite enough provisions, but we were young, we were free, we didn't really have too many cares in the world. But yeah, and in the main, it's a great country, and although there's lots of killer animals, I haven't actually seen any during my 12 years, so I'm pretty safe from that.
That was going to be my next question. Actually, is what's the biggest spider you've seen?
The biggest what?
What's the biggest spider you've seen?
Oh, biggest huntsman. So the huntsman, they're actually really safe, but they're you kind of want huntsmen around because they eat all the little local, all the bugs. But the huntsmen are very common in houses, and they're like tarantula type looking, like, and they're big. And I'm not exactly, they're big. And several months after we moved here, and the kids were all very young, and if, I'm not sure if you've got children, but I'm always kind of like, not let the kids know that I'm scared and go, oh, everything's all right. Suddenly, there's this huntsman. I was driving in the car, and this huntsman goes across the dashboard in front of me, and then goes across onto my driver's side window. So I try to open the window to flick it out, and it falls into my lap whilst I'm driving. And I was there with the kids going, "It's all right, everything's all good." Absolutely petrified, absolutely petrified. But thankfully, they don't hurt you, but they just look pretty scary. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who would have probably crashed that car in screaming.
It was very, very, very close to crashing it. But yeah, the worst thing is that it's cockroaches. There's a lot of, you can easily get a problem with cockroaches, and they're pretty horrible things.
Lovely. So just taking it back to the business side then, in terms of, you grew a company from starting out at nothing to 170 employees, which you then went on to later sell.
Mm.
What was that journey like? And yeah, just talk us through how that was when you kind of first started out, and when it first started, I suppose, taking off. Was there any
Yeah.
kind of fears and doubts that you faced, and uncertainty, and when you just kind of went ahead and pushed forward anyway? Was there anything that made you doubt and think, I should stop this? Anything like that? Talk about the journey around that.
I think I just did it because I didn't realize quite how crazy I was. If I look back on it
Lesson
now, and
learned.
I was
It's
giving my
crazy.
old self some advice, I'd go, "What are you doing?" No, I was really fortunate, and so in the UK in 2000, those who are in the caring industry will know, there was big reform that happened in the UK around how people with disability were supported. And so I've been going through that experience from having working in the sector in the UK. And what happened in 2000 in the UK was pretty much along the same lines of what was happening in kind of 2013, 2014, 2015 in Australia. And so it's a scheme called the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, that was rolled out several, kind of more than probably 10 years or so ago now. And so I saw this opportunity and thought, well, I've been running services like that in the UK. I can give that a go. And so just signed myself up, set myself up, and got started. And I think I was really fortunate because I'd seen what had happened in the UK. It was from a kind of a customer point of view. Obviously, the customers I was supporting were people living with a disability. I just got on and did what I'd been doing in the UK. And in Australia, there was a little bit of, why are you doing it? That's interesting. And I was, as if it was my idea. And I was like, well, it's kind of what we've been doing in the UK. So the actual kind of structure from a care point of view in relation to people with disability was pretty easy, because it'd been my bread and butter in the UK. So that side of things was pretty easy. And the other side was because I'm a very much kind of a networker. I care more about what people think than the business, which is, we might come on to a little bit down the line. But I'm just all about customer service, everyone being happy, everyone getting the right quality of service. So I was very heavily involved in that early day. I did everything. Bring on the clients, I'd sign up clients, I'd go out and do support myself. I just did whatever was needed within the business. And if there weren't enough staff, I'd jump in a car and I'd go and shower somebody myself. So I just said yes to everything. And even to the point, we used to get some work from a large company, a large provider would quite often contract work to us. And they'd call me up and say, oh, have you got a support worker in so-and-so area? And those of you that know Australia, it's a pretty big place. And I'd always say, yeah, no worries, send through the request and I'll make it happen. And one day, I got this request for 3 weeks of work for 1 hour a day, from like a 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning. And I looked on the map to where this place was, because normally I would like, oh, well, I'll just go and do that. It's no bother for me. And it was a 2-hour drive from my house. And I thought, oh, How am I going to do that? Uh, and then I actually was talking to a member of my team that evening saying, "Oh, I think this might be the first thing I'm going to have to go back and say I can't do." And she said, "Oh, I've got a house that I own and I'm renovating up that way. If you want me to go do it, I'll drive up there and I'll just go stay up there for a couple of weeks." I was like, "Oh my goodness, wow." So she went and did the care. So I was really fortunate. I had really good staff in the early days, and the climate was really changing and around how care was delivered. And a lot of the other providers were becoming very scared of losing their clients because all these changes were happening. Um, and to be honest, their tactics weren't always great. And I was just transparent and honest. And clients just came to me and I grew. Yeah, I was just really fortunate that I built a really good relationship with people. They came to me and then I found some really good quality staff who came. A lot of them knew more about how to run services than I did. And I looked up to them and was like, right, can you be in charge of this thing? Can you be in charge of this thing? Because I was kind of making it up a little bit as I went along. And I just got the right people around me. So that was super important for me in the early stage. And they pretty much, wrote my processes for me, got everything, all the paperwork and everything together for me. Um, and we just kind of grew pretty rapidly. So I was kind of backfilling a little bit to make sure that I had everything in place because we were growing so rapidly. That was one big lesson for me, was just trying to kind of put all those systems and all those policies and procedures. Someone would say, "Oh, we got a policy for so and so," and I go, "Give me half an hour," and I'd go away and I'd write it.
I will in a minute.
Well, in a minute, yeah. So that was a little bit. That was a little bit how we managed in the early days. And my background in the UK was in training, so I love doing that training side of things as well. And yeah, I really relied on good quality staff and those good local relationships. I did find that I kind of got to a point where I kind of jumped from being that really friendly, everybody knows Helen and everybody, to being kind of that slightly bigger business. And I had to kind of, for my own sanity, step back a little bit. And that caused friction with clients. It caused friction with staff, where I was trying to get managers and leaders and people a bit more responsible for being that
Mm.
front face. That was a very challenging time in the business where I was kind of stepping back, but people were still trying to like, "Helen, we need you, we need you." So that was a difficult time within the business. And then what kind of happened as well, and not long after that, was, in hindsight, what I realize now is that the culture of the business was kind of evolving, and because I didn't have control of the business culture, it was kind of being formed by a couple of people who probably wouldn't have been my choice of setting the tone of the culture. And it wasn't intentional. It really wasn't intentional, but just a few people just thought they kind of, yeah, like, as people who've experienced change in business culture will know. I just let the reins loose and found myself in a little bit of sticky water around building a strong company culture, which I realized, which caused me a few dramas and a few problems. But I then spent a little bit of time with some consultants and some very experienced people around building strong company cultures, and I really worked as hard as I possibly could to build that back up again before I sold the business. So that was one thing that I hope I did the best I could, and I enjoyed the process, and I learned a huge amount in the process. But yeah, an interesting experience, and as well, being in an industry that's so um, focused around compliance, that did become a massive headache for me in the end. That I was sleepless nights worrying: are we managing all the compliance? Is there anybody that's at risk? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What am I not on top of? Did cause a few sleepless nights towards the end.
Mm. Mm. I'd be around that culture aspect. I'd be interested to hear from you how big the team was when you started to notice that, because there's a chap called Daniel Priestley you
Yep,
might have heard of,
yep,
and
heard
he
of him. Yep.
talks about this. He
Mm.
talks about this and kind of it gives like a number as to when the culture starts to change in terms of how many employees you have. So I'd be interested to know whether you have an idea of the
Yeah,
amount, the number of employees that you had, and when that change started, to see whether it kind of lines up with what he says
and
as
I'm
well.
not 100% sure about what you're talking about, so I can't even recall his numbers and say I think it's probably around 60 to 80 staff was when things
Okay.
kind of pulled over. I think that was
Yeah.
kind of the point, but I don't quote me on it, but, I feel my gut says it was around that 60 to 80 point. What
Okay.
numbers does he
Yeah.
give?
He says, you'll start to see like culture changes and culture shifts, purely because of the amount of people, after about 30 employees.
You know
30
what? It's
employees onwards, you'll start to see the
just after I asked the question, I thought you were gonna say 30. But yeah, and I think it was difficult as well because we were across 2 regions. So we were in, for those of that are familiar with the geography of Australia, we were in New South Wales, so we were just north of Sydney, and we had a large geographic area. I think when I first looked at it, it was the same size as Hampshire and Berkshire combined. When I tried to work out the geographic size, but yeah, so you're really talking kind of a good few hours of driving from the top of the area to the bottom. And then we moved up to
mm,
Queensland. I moved up with my family, and we set up more offices up in Queensland. So from Sydney to Queensland, it's a 2 hour flight. It's an 8 hour drive. It's pretty much, bottom of England up to the top of England. Um, and we did the same again. So I think I kind of had two nucleus type areas. Actually, linked in with your it was probably more like there was kind of 30 to 40 staff down south and 20 to 30 staff up north as well. So that was probably, maybe that was how the two little nucleuses were kind of working by themselves. I don't know, but yeah, it was challenging. It was very challenging.
and how did you manage that then? I imagine it's so difficult, especially when there's two kind of broken team. I don't want to say broken. That's
Yeah, yeah,
probably the
yeah.
wrong word, but
It's
two
it's
separate
it's
teams.
a disconnect. There is, absolutely. Um, it wasn't easy. I had a really good manager down on the Central Coast, so the region that was just north of Sydney. I had a really good manager who I found, to manage that region, and she did an amazing job at growing the staff team. She was well connected. Um, she was a very good manager for the stage of growth that the business was in. Probably the rollout probably outgrew her a little bit towards the end. But the I can't. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. What was the question?
It was just around how would you manage
How
that,
did I manage it? Yeah. So and then
the
yeah,
separation between the two. Yeah.
I was then managing the North region. I'd travel down south quite regularly. And then when the North region got bigger, then I got a manager up in the North region as well. And I got to the point where I really was then able to step back. It was interesting because I had the two amazing managers, one down south and one up north. And I really had stepped back from the business. But as I said, compliance was getting a lot stricter, and I was feeling a little bit out of my depth in some areas of the business. And someone recommended I meet this lady, and I didn't really know why I was going to go meet this lady. And I went and met her. She was actually moving up to the kind of the area in which I live at the time. And as soon as I met her, I knew she was going to be my operations manager. And she came on board in the business, and we'd set the date. She was going to come meet. We were going to start the induction. The day she came, her first day in the business was the day everything went nuts from a COVID perspective. So do you remember that day where, like, the Friday everyone was happy and thinking, "Oh, there's this thing and I'm not too sure what's going to happen." Monday morning it was like we were literally by, you know, crazy. What's going on? What's happening? What do we need to do? What do we not need to do? Like, it was just insane. And I remember meeting her at the door of the office and saying, right, we need to communicate to everybody. We need a strategy of what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing because nobody's told us what we should and what we shouldn't be doing. But we had a lot of really scared people, and especially in the care sector, because we have a responsibility to make sure that services continue on a day by day basis. So
Mhm.
and as well, the risk involved, everyone's fear around what this thing was, what was going to happen. Yeah, pretty much one of my most challenging times in my life during COVID, and I was so thankful because this person that came on board was very good. She was very experienced at kind of doing communications, that communications marketing method around PR, managing that effectively. And she was also very savvy around the compliance and all those types of things. So I was very fortunate and so thankful that she was there on day one of COVID, because I wouldn't have done the job half as well without her expertise.
Excellent. Well, bringing that up has kind of like blew my next question out the water. So I did have one question lined up, which I'll kind of come back to. But how was that then? Obviously, being in the care sector, it must have been frightening, overwhelming, stressful, stressful to say the least. Yeah, talk us through what that kind of experience was like, rather than the kind of nitty gritty of what you had to do, but just the kind of experience of everything and the process that you had
Honestly,
to go through.
Honestly, it was all of the above, Ian. I mean, we were really fortunate in Queensland that the world seemed to be in lockdown, yet we still had a reasonable level of movement. So we were very, very fortunate. Um, but like you say, it was scary because nobody knew what this thing was. Is this thing going to kill me? Am I safe? Is my family safe? So like the fear kicks in. And as a leader, it was like, okay, my staff team are all petrified. I'm a little bit scared about what's going to happen, but I need to be this person that says, okay, yeah, I know we're all feeling these feelings, but we have individuals who are vulnerable in the community who need us to be there for them. And it was almost that kind of, I've done a few of the kind of, the Tony Robbins type stuff or whatever, where you've just got to be this person, even if you don't feel like you can be that person. And that's what I had to do. I kind of almost went into autopilot to somebody I didn't even really knew existed, because I'd never seen her before. Um, but yeah, I just had to have a confidence, even though I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Um, we had no information from the government about what we should or shouldn't be doing. There was no PPEs. There was no kind of gloves and aprons and masks and all that. As everyone experienced, there was nothing to protect the workforce. I mean, we were driving around. I mean, even I'm not sure if the story was the same in the UK. You couldn't even get loo roll. Like everyone had just, mass bought loo roll.
Honestly, it drove me insane. It's like, how much do you really need?
I just wrap myself in loo roll and protect myself. I don't know what the thinking is behind the loo roll thing. I still haven't worked that one out. But I felt like I was completely stranded with no guidance whatsoever from the government. And because I don't think they even knew what was going on. And like we had to we this person that I got on board was really good at, like, okay, right, everyone, when you go to go to a house, you knock, you ask if they have any symptoms. Like, she came up with all of this stuff before anybody said this is what you should be doing. She was like, symptoms, da, 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 da. And if there's a yes to any of these things, call the office and we'll try and work out what you should be doing. But it was then kind of like, okay, so what is the risk for this person? Is there a family member that can go in? What are we going to do? But even to the point, I didn't know how to get PPE. I didn't know how to get the protective equipment for staff. But B, like, I didn't even know, there was no way of training staff to put PPE on. So, and as well, they were going, well, even if I put that on, am I still going to die? Because what we were seeing in the media was all these healthcare workers across the world who were going in and working in hospitals and who knew how to put all this equipment on, and they were still dying. And it was like, it was just it was scary. It was scary, for everybody. And I know, as we've all shared an experience since the event, it's that people's mental health suffered massively during that time, and I'm not sure, it's even really probably properly come back, to kind of, that kind of base level that it maybe should be at. So yeah, as a business owner, it was a very, very scary time. And then as things started to kind of evolve through the process, I was then even getting the government contacting us saying, well, what are you doing about this? And what are you doing about this? And what are you doing about this? So we had to prove, thankfully, we were meeting all the criteria that they had asked of us. But yeah, there was no support, no guidance, no help. So as a kind of a small business owner, it was challenging. It was challenging. And then as well, I had my mum in the UK who had no contact with family, because she was living alone. And I had family members, and to be honest, like I couldn't be there for them because I couldn't even be there for myself. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I feel the guilt that my family, my parents, my friends who were all kind of stuck at home, not able to communicate, not able to have contact with other people, and I didn't even really do any type of a service of checking in on them because I was just trying to keep my own oxygen mask on, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
And it's funny you mentioned then, what was it you said? You said you just kind of had to be the person
mm,
that was needed at that particular time. And it kind of reminds me of what I hear, and I'm cautious about comparing the two. Some people might think I'm wrong for doing so. But when you hear soldiers and they say it's just the job, you're
mm.
just doing your job when they're doing some incredible feats. So how did you find stepping in to be that person who is the leader that people need in that moment and is just doing what is needed in that moment? What was that like? If
I
you're able to kind of comprehend
Yeah,
that
I
moment.
don't think I didn't realize at the time that I became that person. I definitely grew as a leader. Definitely. I completely changed during that whole process. And the person who stepped in on day one of COVID as a CEO, and the person that stepped out, 18 months, 2 years later, I can't remember how long we had to kind of deal with all the craziness. That was a very, very, very different person. So I just when you're kind of like that you're well, that kind of startled experience, I'm sure people will relate, whatever their experience is, where they're just suddenly caught and they have to do something. It's that fight or flight
Mm,
moment. And,
yeah.
I don't know, like
Yeah.
if somebody comes, thankfully never experienced it, but if a robber came up to me or whoever, you just got to do what you need to do in that moment to get through that situation. And you don't think, what do I need to do? You just do it. It's that fight or flight moment. And I think I genuinely was living in that fight or flight without realizing it for a considerable length of time. And I was just this person. I just had to be this person. And as well, I had the kids homeschooled, four kids in the house, all trying to sign up to laptops. And
God.
I was like, mum, trying to sign them in. And then the funny thing was, I had four kids, and my youngest was, I don't know, about 6 or 7 at the time, something, it was pretty young. And I was like, okay, you all set up, you got your laptop, you're ready to go, you're going to do your online learning. Mummy's just going to go and have this meeting with all her staff who are freaking out because they don't know what they're doing. And my kids are like, yeah, we're good. And suddenly I'm trying to set up this, because of course, the Zoom meetings and Google Meets of then is just a very different experience to now. And there's all these people and that. I mean, I had a staff team trying to get them all online at the same time. Oh my God. It was like trying to herd sheep. It was just like, they were all, "Stop, sit down, listen." And there's my kid there, on their laptops with their teachers. And I'm thinking, how can my children do this? And all these adults, they're like, I don't know how to switch my computer on. What am I doing? And they're kind of like with their head on the screen, kind of
Yeah.
like, oh. Thankfully, things are. I think it's a good thing. I think we can now connect across the world in a much better way and do business in a very, very different way. But yeah, it was a funny experience in the early stages of COVID with people who were not particularly tech savvy, not really knowing what they were doing or how to, so, kind of meeting etiquette. I remember doing some training once, and I had the whole staff team. It was pretty complex training. And one of the staff members hadn't realised her camera was off, and camera was on, and she was like pulling her top up, and it was like, quick.
It reminds me of two incidents I had when I was at work as well. So I was project manager, and I'd be helping engineers. I say helping engineers. I'd be organising everything, and the engineers would be installing phone systems for like blue light services in the government. So it was quite busy for ourselves as well. And one of the engineers, they were doing some work. I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he had his laptop open and his camera on, but he didn't realise he had a camera on, and no one was on the meeting yet. So he thought, "Oh, I'll just go away and get a brew." And he he came back, and there's like 6 people on the screen waiting for him. But he didn't realize he was in his wife's dressing gowns in like pink polka dots.
Oh, I love it. I just love it.
And we had another meeting once, the whole company meeting. And pretty much everyone, apart from a handful of people, were in the office at the time. So this was after COVID had gone now. But it's all over Teams and that kind of thing now. And we had a couple of people working from home, and everyone else was in the office. And we've got quite a huge boardroom at the time, and big screens up on the wall. And so if someone's at home and they start talking or they make a noise and they've not muted themselves, they come up full on the screen, just their head. And there's this one lady, she didn't realize, and she's just chatting to her husband in the background while she's hiding on this big screen at this company event that we're doing. Oh my God. Linda, turn your camera off and go on mute.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of stories out there of people who
I'm
absolutely.
sure there's worse stories than that as well, yeah. I'll just circle back to a question I thought of earlier as you were talking was, at the start you were saying you're all about building relationships, caring more about what customers and clients were thinking rather than the business itself. So I imagine it was quite a bit of a struggle for yourself personally when you had to maybe kind of come out of the weeds and take a step back from working in the business and work on the business, so to speak. What was that kind of transition like for yourself? Because I
It was
imagine there's quite a few business owners out there that are potentially coming up to that moment.
It was actually easier than you might think, Ian, and I'll say what happened for me. So, like I said, I used to turn up to work wearing my work gear, really, to go out and give somebody a shower or do whatever I needed to do. And I just made the decision quite early on, and I don't know what sparked it in me, but one day I just dressed up in my work clothes. I put my high-heeled shoes on, I did my hair, I put my work pants on, work trousers, and I went into work. And that shift in mindset around I'm in the office and I'm the CEO, I never went out and provided care again after that. So it was really it was a mindset shift was really what changed it for me. And so, because I know what you're saying, I know a lot of people do struggle to kind of step back from their business because it's a control thing. I think probably in hindsight, my problem was I just kind of let it go, and I probably gave stuff away a little bit too soon, a little bit too early, maybe, in hindsight. And although I've had staff that have said that they've loved that I've given them that autonomy, but I always believe, and I've always tried to get on people that are more skilled than me. Like I talked about the managers, I brought on an HR staff member who was actually she was at uni when she first started. So she was finishing off uni and came on board, and she was really amazing. And like she was instrumental in doing so many HR things within the business that I didn't even know. I was like, just go sort that, just go do that. So I think you've just got to just trust and believe in people. And yes, I will be honest, sometimes it didn't work out for me. And sometimes, I had to let people go and it wasn't the right decision. But I'd say 80% of the time, it's just about trust and belief and just not micromanaging, but letting people know that, you're there if they need you. So I think that was actually reasonably easy for me just to let go of those reins. As the business was growing, and I just kind of did it quite naturally. I think it's a little bit to do with my personality type. I'm not much of a control freak. I don't like don't like getting into fine detail.
Just kind of bringing it kind of full circle then, Helen. Talk to us a little bit more about what you do now and how you help people now and what you've kind of got going on now. You touched on it a little earlier, but let's dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so my husband built this platform Kzen8, so that's KZEN and then the number 8, and it really is a place where people can go and start building their own software. And I know a lot of people will kind of go, well, I still don't really get what you're talking about, Helen, and I understand that. Because I only really understand it because I can see what my husband's built. But what we're finding is there's two distinct types of people I found in business. One is somebody who is an industry expert. So to me, an industry expert is somebody who maybe knows, health and safety upside down, or HR, or they've got it like a sales process or something like that, that they're like, I'm a master in my chosen topic, and I know my chosen topic, and it might be a specialism in a certain type of industry as well. I don't know. But these industry experts, we find that my husband and I have connected with a few of them, and they say, everything that's in my brain, I want to make money from it. I don't want to be a consultant that goes out into business and just regurgitates everything in my brain, or I've got this manual with all the answers that people need. I want to put all of my knowledge, all of my IP into a system that I know people will follow that process and follow that system, and they're doing it the correct way within that industry, within that process, within whatever it might be. So we've found that we've connected really well with those types of people, and we've built them systems. So there's one guy, Murray, who as an example, we've built a system for him, and he's that specialist around health and safety. So all of his processes around risk management, he's put into a system, and he now uses them with the businesses he works with, and makes ongoing revenue from them using the systems. So that's just kind of one type of an example of the type of kind of person who might be interested in looking at Kaizenate. And the other type of a person is somebody who just loves a process. They love a spreadsheet. Maybe they're kind of like a little bit of a closet, maybe they're not quite a developer, but they like process. They like a really good, spreadsheet that's working really well. And they love going into a business and just seeing, God, if they just did those things, they'd make so much more money, or they'd free up so much more time, or whatever. Those
Mm,
types of
yeah.
people are what we call creators. They're Kaizenate creators, and several of them have kind of jumped on board. They've learnt the platform, and they're then utilizing their skill in building solutions, but to go out and speak to business owners who have got those headaches or got those process problems, and they go, I hear you. I can see all the issues you've got. Let me build you a solution. So those are the kind of areas that I'm starting to develop at the moment within Kaizenate, because in the last couple of years since the platform's been built, we've been actually going more at the enterprise end. So we've been building healthcare solutions, so going into local hospitals, helping them with processes, and then kind of to kind of manage their systems a little bit, and help them. We're not replacing the systems, but we're kind of replacing those spreadsheets that departments have been managing with very, very well for a number of years, and they need something
God.
that's a little robust. It's spread. We're
Yeah.
my new word. We are the spreadsheet killer.
Thank God there's someone out there doing that, because I friggin' hate them.
Well, they're just not designed to manage processes in the way they have been. I mean, they're people are using these spreadsheets to manage really complex systems. We worked with a manufacturing company a couple of years ago, who everything was on a spreadsheet, and every single thing that they were doing within their plant, it was all the massive compliance around it. They had to log, which bit of metal went to this and what and everything, because if there was a problem, it all had to link back. And there's like a 15-page spreadsheet with all these different numbers and codes, and it's like, oh my goodness, how? Yeah. And yeah, so anybody who is using a spreadsheet, and in a way that is not about you doing accountancy or maths, to try and manage their business, definitely needs to take a look at Kaizenate and see if they can build their own solution with us.
I do know the pain of this so well. We had, like I say, when project managing, oh God, spreadsheets everywhere. It used to drive me insane. And the thing that used to do my head in more than anything was if someone had took your version and then didn't they updated the version but just saved it on their desktop and didn't share it back out, and then they carried on developing that version of your spreadsheet whilst you're working on a different version, and then they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
I know.
Anyway, first world problems.
The thing, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a tech head. I don't know what it. But my husband said there used to be something called Microsoft Access. I'm not so sure if it's something you're familiar with. And Microsoft Access is probably the easiest thing if for people that understand what that is. I don't. It's probably the easiest way to explain what you can do within Kaizenate. And apparently, Microsoft Access was a really good old way of people who were a little bit tech savvy, who could go and build a pretty simple system that did what it needed to do. And it doesn't exist anymore. And there is, you can get a lot of off the shelf stuff, but people are like trying to plug this bit into that bit and it doesn't talk, and I need this bit and I need that bit. And before they know it, they've spent a couple of $100 on all these different individual little bits that don't really talk to each other and don't quite do what they want to do. Or right the way through to, kind of, 100,000, 200,000 plus of development, which is completely out of the ballpark for most business owners. There's nothing in that middle ground. And what we love is that you can build your own systems, anything from kind of CRM, rostering, project management, through to kind of spitting out an invoice or at the end. So it's that bit in the middle. There's some really good CRMs out there, and there's some really good accountancy software. And the accountancy software has kind of tried to go back a little bit and backfill, and the CRM's tried to go forward a little bit, and we're just in that gap in the middle. That's what we're fixing.
Question for you. How did you come up with the name? It's quite a unique name. What's the story behind that?
It's based on Kaizen, which is the Japanese term for it's continuous improvement. So it's
nice.
So we kind of turned into a verb. So to Kaizen, so it's the idea is you Kaizenate your business, you continually improve, because what we see is people start with a system when their business is smaller, and then their business gets bigger and scales, and then they need more and more bits and bobs and complexity and systems. And so Kaizenate, the platform, can grow with you as your business grows and provide all the solutions you need. So it's my husband that came up with the idea. Yes.
Very clever. Very clever. Last question then before we wrap up is, what does success for yourself and your husband in this business kind of look like for yourselves in the future? What does success look like?
So we see ourselves being digital nomads. We see ourselves being anywhere in the world. I mean, I pretty much got my bag packed, ready to go. I just want to be, anywhere, doing anything, speaking to anybody. Somebody say, "Oh, we need you in Dubai for a meeting tomorrow." No problems. We'll jump on a flight. And then we've got a couple of days and we're jumping online, looking at scaling up and getting more of a workforce overseas, so a remote workforce, and just being anywhere in the world. We could be sitting, supping, kind of a glass of wine in Paris or whatever it might be, and just flick up the laptop and go into a business meeting or do whatever needs to be done and just travel the world, but also have that flexibility that if our family needs us or we need to be somewhere at a certain place and time, we can just jump on a plane and do what needs to be done, and we're not beholden to anyone or anything, and we can be anywhere in the world managing our business successfully. That's what success for me looks like.
Beautiful. What a great place to leave it. Helen, how can people get in touch with you?
I'll give you all the links to my socials. So I'm pretty much on the Facebooks and LinkedIn. I'm not a great Instagram person, but I'll give you my socials to connect with me. I'm also on the school platform, and I'm just recently started a networking group within school, so SKOOL. So I'm hanging out there most days. So if you want to really connect and get to know me and also connect with other like-minded business owners, then try and track me down in school.
Excellent. And we'll add all those links into the show notes for everybody.
Awesome.
Helen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me in.
Have you ever felt like business should be more than numbers and deadlines? Like there's an entire world to explore beyond your office walls? Is adventure calling your name? I'm Ian Whitehead, and I'm your guide on Uncharted, the Entrepreneur's Adventure podcast, where I bring you real stories from visionary leaders who've built empires and climbed literal mountains. Because success isn't just about the bottom line, it's about the thrill of taking risks, the courage to pursue what truly lights you up, and the freedom to chart your own course. Each week we'll dive deep into the minds of boundary-pushing entrepreneurs and adventurers, revealing how they found purpose in the chaos and discovered their true north, both in business and beyond. So, if you're ready to break free from the ordinary, embrace bold action and inject a little more adventure into your life, welcome to Uncharted. Your journey starts here.